possible. So that should be starting here in a minute. Okay, let me go ahead and get everyone checked in. It looks like we have the applicant slash owner, Mr. Edward Bowl. Mr. Bowl, if you could just confirm that your equipment's working properly, say hello, and confirm that you're the applicant owner on this.
Yes, good morning. Edward Bowl, owner applicant.
Okay, great. Welcome. Mr. Bowl, are you expecting anyone else to join us here today before we get started?
I am not.
Okay, great. Welcome. It looks like we have someone else here under the name Welling G2. If that person could unmute. Are you there?
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. How you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. Could you give me your full name and who you're representing here today?
Glenn Welling Jr. I'm a neighbor.
Gotcha. Did you send in the correspondence
I did.
Yesterday? Okay.
I did.
Okay, great. All right. Welcome.
Thanks.
All right. I need to read through our hearing script, which basically just covers the procedure for the hearing, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So this is the April 5th, 2023 session of the Zoning Hearing Examiner docket. Case before us today is case number ZH20230026. That's 5863 Wayside Avenue. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and any potential opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the Zoning Hearing Examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant, the applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent first present the applicant's case. Any members of the public will then have an opportunity to speak after the applicant has presented its case. In the event that any party testifies or offers argument in opposition to an application, the applicant will have an opportunity to rebut that testimony and or argument that was offered in opposition. And then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to make any closing statements. After all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or make any comments. In the event of any technical difficulties, I will do my best to troubleshoot those on the fly. But to the extent there's some defect that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with this hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay. Last thing I need to do is just swear in all of our witnesses. So if you intend on providing any testimony here today, making any comments, asking any questions, doing anything other than just strictly observing, then the zoning code requires that I swear you in. So if you believe that's you, if you could raise your right hand, I need everyone to answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, great. Thanks. Mr. Bowl, are you ready to tell me about the project?
Yes. So good morning. I'm Edward Bowl. I'm the owner applicant. I'm seeking a dimensional zoning variance from the city of approximately 832 feet for the construction of a high tunnel on my property. By way of background, a high tunnel, described by some as a hoop house, looks very similar to a greenhouse. The difference between a high tunnel and a greenhouse is that plants are grown in the ground for a high tunnel, whereas plants are grown in pots in a greenhouse. I'm participating in the City of Cincinnati High Tunnel Initiative, which is a partnership with the United States Department of Agriculture and the city. And it was started 2 or 3 years ago to encourage urban agriculture in Cincinnati. We're in a food desert here in Cincinnati. So the USDA approved a partial grant for me to construct a high tunnel on my property, which will cover a half or a third of the construction costs. And that grant is for an 1,800 square foot high tunnel, which is slightly larger than the 1,632 square feet high tunnel that I'm proposing to put in. But it exceeds the 800 square feet allowed for an agricultural structure by the city. I've educated myself quite a bit on what high tunnels are and how to operate them. The Ohio State University has a great program. It's called High Tunnel School. I attended that last year, attended a number of local workshops. Camp Washington Urban Farm has some high tunnels. Our Harvest Cooperative over on North Bend has some high tunnels, just to kind of get a sense of how they operate. Trey Sheldon he's the zoning examiner. He submitted a great staff report summarizing the relief I'm requesting, and it details why I've met all the standards for a variance. And he ultimately recommended approval of the variance. So really with that, I respectfully request the variance, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Sure. Thank you for that testimony. I don't think that I have any questions right off the bat. I may hold those until I have a chance to hear from Mr. Welling. And so, Mr. Welling, anything you wanted to ask or to add to the testimony here today?
Sure. Well, first of all, good morning, and Mr. Bull, it's nice to meet you here virtually. I'm sorry that we haven't had an opportunity. I just live right down the street. Sorry we haven't had an opportunity to run into each other, personally. Look forward.
Sure, agreed.
Yeah, look forward to doing that. And it sounds like a very commendable project that you're undertaking here. A couple of questions, and some of my, frankly, my concern around it was, first of all, where on your property will it be located?
Right. So it's kind of a unique property in that it sits on the dog leg there on Wayside.
Yep.
So if you're looking at the front door of the house from Wayside, it sits to the left.
Okay.
If you're viewing the property from the west on Wayside and the dog leg, it's on the other side of the house. So it's kind of behind the house, depending on what direction you're looking at. The USDA came out and we looked at.
Guys, I'm gonna share my screen. Can you see the screen with the where my cursor is?
Exactly, right there. That's the best placement according to the USDA for sunlight and things like that. So it's pretty unique. It'll barely be visible, if at all. Certainly during the spring and summer months, I don't think you'll see it at all. Even in winter, when all the foliage is dropped, I think you'll barely be able to see it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm very familiar. I drive past your house several times every day. So, well, I'll just be very candid here. My concern was it's obviously you've had some challenges with your roof in particular.
Right.
Right. So the 2 points that I made in my written testimony was that, concerned about the upkeep and maintenance to the property in general as it relates to the roof, and then the motorhome that you've got parked there. I commend what you're undertaking here. What's your plan for, upkeep and maintenance? Number one, of the property in general, and number two, of this new, structure.
Right. So that roof should be done by the end of the year. It's actually more watertight than it had been in 50 years.
Really?
It has that clay tile roof. And, it was difficult to find anybody here locally that could work on it. And the guy that was going to finish it had been in Puerto Rico, but he has committed to coming back into town in the next couple of months. And certainly finishing that front section, which there's some paper that looks a little ragged. And to be honest with the RV, I bought the house from my grandparents, and it was theirs, and I barely even see it. But I didn't know if that troubled anybody or not. But if that's a concern, we can certainly talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks for that. And that's got to be, the guy's going to come back and help you get that roof finally done. I'm sure that's something you've been anxious to have accomplished for a while.
Yes, you and me both.
Yeah. Good. Okay. That's David, that's all I have.
Okay. And Mr. Bull, you are living on the property, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. And let's see. Do you know that the square footage of the lot? It looks like it's much larger than adjacent lots, and also just in general what an SF20 lot is. Is
Just
it 20?
over 2 acres.
Okay.
Yeah, the property to the east, I think he's pushing about 7 acres. There's a doctor that lives there.
John, yep.
Yeah. And he's really excited about this. I mean, he's been brewing maple syrup. I thought Trey addressed the size.
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, he does here. It says it's 20,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Well, Ed, John's brother, Mike, is my next door neighbor.
Okay, that makes sense. I was trying to place where you're at down through.
Yeah,
there.
I'm in that the house with the 3-car stagnant garage.
Great.
Gotcha. Okay, and remind me, you may have mentioned this at the beginning. It is part of the grant include a requirement that the hoop house is a certain size?
It was a maximum of 1,800 square feet. That's what they recommended when they came out and evaluated the property. I think the grants vary. And to be honest, that seemed huge when they first recommended it. And as I go to these, as I've learned more, everybody has told me you're going to wish it was bigger if you go small. So, but yeah, that was the recommended square footage, and it'll come in a couple hundred square feet under that 1,800.
Gotcha. And it looks like it'll be buffered or screened from the vegetation from most of the surrounding properties.
That's correct.
And you presented this to the Mount Washington Community Council?
Yes.
Also, and I think, is there a letter in I think I do have a letter in the packet here from them that they
Yes.
Support the project. Okay.
Yes.
Let's see. Okay. All right. I don't think I have any other questions. Is there anything else you want to say in closing or otherwise, Mr. Bull, before we adjourn here today?
No, thank you for your time.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I've had a chance to review the application materials and the staff report, and I think based on that and based on the testimony I've heard here today, that it would be what's the word I'm looking for? It would be I think impractical to strictly enforce the zoning code to this application based on the size of the property and the property itself. And so I'm going to approve the application. I need to formalize that approval in a written decision. I mentioned at the beginning that they typically take about 2 weeks. Hopefully, knowing that this is going to be approved or officially approved in a couple of weeks, will give you some room to start moving forward. But we won't be able to officially approve the permitting until that decision has been written and has been issued. What I do when I finish the decisions is I put them into a PDF. I'll email them to everybody who's in the hearing here today, so you each will have a copy of that decision. As soon as you have a copy of that decision, you can work with the zoning department. I think you mentioned Trey Sheldon worked on this project, so I'll include him on that email with the decision, so you all will have a copy of it, and then he can move forward on the zoning portion of the permitting and approving that, so you can take the next steps and move forward.
Fantastic.
Any questions about any of that?
Nope. I have the building permit ready to go, and yeah, I look forward to seeing your approval.
Okay, great. Well, if you have any questions in the meantime, either of you feel free to reach out to me directly. Happy to answer those. Or if Mr. Bull, you just like a status update on the decision, you can also reach out to me directly, and I'll let you know where I'm at.
Okay, very well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both for your time and your testimony.
Yeah, I look forward to meeting you.
Yes, come by.
I'll do. Thank you.